Jen Psaki says she has a hard time keeping up with President O'Biden.
O'Biden?
O'Biden on road trips.
What?
Yeah, she says she has a hard time keeping up with him when they go on road trips.
Is that because
when he travels?
Security is carrying him?
He's got.
He's always wandering around. He doesn't know where he is.
Yeah,
it's hard to keep up with lost people.
$6 trillion Biden budget.
What? Oh my goodness!
And actually, it's going to get $12 trillion. We'll get to that in a little bit. What? Pastor Toby Chalk Knox, I'm the water boy, and we got campus preacher Keith Darrell in the his house, yes. My Niz house for his house.
This is like the second time in like a month or something.
6 weeks.
Hey, because we're wanting you to do more content on the network.
Yeah, bring me on down. I'll give you guys content.
You guys want content?
You guys want content? I'll deliver content.
Yeah. What? So it's on us?
No, I just need to show up.
How does this work?
I just need to show up. Monday. I'll be here Monday.
Live streaming with Keith Darrell, campus preacher. Monday.
Wow.
Come on in Monday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow he's doing it. All right.
Okay, we got a live studio audience today.
Tomorrow's not Monday.
For people watching
Hey, we do got a live studio audience. Yay!
All 4 of you.
And
2 of them work for us.
If you ever travel to Moscow, you could come to our a live recording.
No. Yeah. 3 of them work.
3 of them work.
Yeah. And one of them works for us and just doesn't get paid.
Actually, 2.
That's
we got
true.
one guest in the house. Yeah. Say what he does, or is he just the studio audience?
We'll just leave it there.
Okay.
Yeah, he might. We didn't ask him about that.
Okay.
So we'll just leave it there.
Okay.
Our magazine today, tonight, tomorrow. I think it'd be Monday, Tuesday. Is this week? Let's just say this week is the last week to sign
really
up.
Firm on deadline
for our subscription in the magazine because we start shipping out here in the next couple of weeks. So we need to make sure if you have not updated your address, for those who are already subscribers, log into the club portal, update your address, make sure you get the magazine to your door. We need to get the magazine to your door, and we don't want to have to go around finding your address. So log in. If you already subscribed, log in, update your address. And for those who haven't subscribed, man, you got to subscribe, get into this issue.
Deep in the heart
why did
and the fact that Glenn Sunshine's
I'm not
chiming
quite
in,
sure why
it's
that
worth
stinger.
the price of admission.
It is.
Yeah.
Glenn Sunshine, everything Glenn Sunshine does is gold.
Yeah. Is he writing in this edition?
It says featuring.
Yeah, that's the last one. I don't have the new cover.
See, thank you, Keith.
Wait till the next issue.
That's
wait till the next issue.
He might be writing for this.
He might not helpful.
Be writing for this.
And if you aren't a club member, you can join our club and get discount at our next conference here in Nashville or Lebanon, Tennessee, September 9th through the 11th.
Keith, tell everybody how good the rally was in South Dakota.
Yeah.
We can go back a year. The Nashville one was great. I personally enjoyed South Dakota a bit more. I had a bit more fellowship, hung out with more people, had more meals with more people. So I like at the Nashville one, I was a bit more like, what am I doing here?
Because you're kind of afraid of the COVID stuff.
Yeah,
and you're standing on your yellow dot.
While all your friends are getting arrested.
Yeah, I was roundly mocked and ridiculed in Nashville. I was basically bullied for 3 days in Nashville because I stand on one yellow dot. Next thing you know, I'm being bullied by a bunch of grown-ups. And so anyway, they kind of forgot about it by the time we were in South Dakota. And so South Dakota was great. We're having meals with people, going out with people, spending time. So it was phenomenal.
Yeah. So all club members get a discount, actually, to all our events. So we're doing our rally next April, probably in Texas, but particularly coming up in Lebanon. Politics of Sex.
You can also get all the archives from all the conferences and the club portal.
Yep.
If you're already a club member, make sure you're taking advantage of that, along with lots of other great stuff, content. And this show is brought to you by Logos Online School, which provides a Christ-centered classical education for grades 7 through 12.
They got graduation coming up.
It's both affordable and accredited. Their mission is to support parents as they raise their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Classes meet online daily, Monday through Thursday, so you get that fat weekend with your family, or doing all that homework, I don't know.
On Friday.
With outstanding teachers who take a personal interest in your student, and unlike other programs, there are no extra fees for diploma students and honors classes. Registration is now open for fall classes, Christian, classical, accredited, and affordable. LogosOnlineSchool.com.
And look, if we hadn't been sending our kids to public schools for all these years, none of this shutdown would have ever happened. What you did is you had a government for decades teaching our kids, and then the government tells you to stay home because of the coronavirus. Yeah. And we all did it. So good work.
And we'll pay you.
Speaking of public school.
Government schools.
It's all wrong.
Oh, Greta!
I shouldn't be up here.
You're right.
You're right. Yeah.
I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean.
Take her back.
Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Man, how dare
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
And yet you're here.
And yet I'm one of the lucky ones.
Oh.
Why is she lucky?
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
And they all clap.
To all the school kids going on strike for climate change, you're the first generation who've required air conditioning in every classroom. You want TV in every room, and your classes are all computerised. You spend all day and night on electronic devices. More than ever, you don't walk or ride bikes to school, but you arrive in caravans of private cars that choke suburban roads and worsen rush hour traffic. You're the biggest consumers of manufactured goods ever, and update perfectly good, expensive luxury items to stay trendy. Your entertainment comes from electric devices. Furthermore, the people driving your protests are the same people who insist on artificially inflating the population growth through immigration, which increases the need for energy, manufacturing and transport. The more people we have, the more forest and bushland we clear. The more of the environment that's destroyed. How about this? Tell your teachers to switch off the aircon. Walk or ride to school. Switch off your devices and read a book. Make a sandwich instead of buying manufactured fast food. No, none of this will happen. Because, the piece says, you're selfish, badly educated, virtue-signalling little turds inspired by the adults around you who crave a feeling of having a noble cause while they indulge themselves in Western luxury and unprecedented quality of life.
Bars.
Wake up, grow up, and shut up.
That's what we tell you every day, Gabe. No,
Wake up, grow up, shut up.
Is it right that I was marginally distracted that there was a school shooting in Australia?
I was actually a little bit distracted by that, too.
Because all I hear
wondering-
is how there's never
When-
a shooting in Australia, and now there's a school shooting. I don't know how old this is.
Yeah, I know. I was curious when,
I was
when was the
distracted.
date on this.
I don't know, but I just really like.
Of course, he was completely wrong about the point about population.
Yeah, right.
You know, actually, the fact is, God made people to be productive and fruitful, and so people do need to take in more. But you actually, by natural, like just working, you're producing more than you actually consume.
Yeah, and you
That's
have to
right.
realize the Earth is resourceful.
Exactly.
We're not going to plumb
And
the depths
people
of it.
are resourceful.
But people, when they talk about this conversation, whenever we're talking to people about ecosystems and then collapsing, and we're talking about the Green New Deal, everybody is rushing. This is the poopy water stuff that I always talk about.
Yeah, you always bring that up.
every
I don't
time-
know the poopy
Oh, I love it.
You haven't heard them?
Okay, I gotta tell you. So,
Oh, come on.
thanks, Keith. You're the real MVP here. So I talk to my kids about poopy water. Basically, I want them to remember this. The idea is this, that everybody in one way or another can see a problem to something. So they can see that the ground right on the ground is dirty, and so we need to clean it. You know, living room, floor,
There's some mess on the
some
floor.
sort of mess on
Somebody
the floor.
spilled something.
Somebody spilled something. We need to clean it. Everybody sees that. But what the world ends up doing is they go get this bucket of water with a mop in it that's poopy water, and they take that mop bucket and they clean the floor with it and say, "See, we're fixing the problem."
This is your government program.
Yeah, this is
your Social
yeah.
Security. This is your welfare.
Exactly.
This
And
is
so
your CRT.
They go to clean the problem, but they've actually made it worse by spreading feces all over the floor when that was a problem, and now we've just made it worse. So that's what happens when we try and do things without actually doing the way that God says we should do it. And so when we talk about this Green New Deal and all this stuff and the ecosystem falling, what we forget in this conversation is, why is the land cursed so much? It's because of your sin. Like when we had Dr. Gordon Wilson on the show, by the way, you need to go back and listen to the old shows we did with Dr. Gordon Wilson.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal on this topic.
Right.
I'm just going to hit and let you go, Gabe.
Yeah,
But
no.
he just talked about the fact that, listen, when we look at what's going on, the Bible talks about your sin has corrupted the land in such a way that it is cursed. And so it's not going to yield for you the way that you think it should be operating.
Christians should care about the environment.
And
Christians should care about creation, but they should care about it and treat it the way God says to care about it and treat it.
Notice that none of these people are talking about repenting of sin.
No.
Maybe we're the problem. So they get someone, we're the problem.
They just say like more poopy water.
But there we go.
Well,
there we go.
And that's how we treated this whole COVID 2020 thing.
We'll do it ourselves.
Yeah. Just this last week, University of Louisville. That's Louisville.
He's like Louisville. I was like, that's in Ohio.
They came out with a study where they synthesized all this data from CDC and so forth, and they found the result was they found case growth was not significantly different between mandate and non-mandate states.
Yeah,
surges were equivocal.
Yeah.
And then their conclusion was mask mandates and use are not associated with slower state-level COVID-19 spread during COVID-19 growth surges.
Gabe, that's just because you don't have enough faith.
And
you have to believe. You have to believe.
My faith is broken
in the face masks.
And it's amazing. And that's always the government's move is they're able to sell fear, and we're the ones who are mighty to save. We're the ones who can protect you. And so as long as
it might help,
it might
save one life.
And we don't know. The science isn't clear yet. And so you're able to have this open-ended and like, oh, well, if it saves one life, and who wants to be the bad guy to say, oh yeah, we bumped off.
But it's
Grandpa.
trusting in man, not trusting in God, not trusting in facts and truth.
Right. Well, and what's coming out with all this vaccine stuff, the website VAERS, they're the CDC's organization that
they report,
receives reporting from vaccine deaths.
Yeah.
Okay.
So any adverse effects to the
or
vaccine.
adverse effects, and it's kind of there's some weaknesses in it. It can be self-reported, and they also don't test every case to make sure it's actually a death because of the vaccine or not.
Right.
All it is capturing
death because or death with.
Yeah, with that's right. All they're capturing is, hey, this person got vaccinated on this date and they died over here
Or got sick or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't say they died from cancer or anything.
Right.
So that's just one caveat there. But what's crazy is since December, this website has reported that there's been about 4,000 deaths related to vaccines since December.
Since the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yes.
Right.
But it doesn't correlate it to that. Although, come on, no one's getting vaccinated for the flu right now, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a flu right now.
Exactly. Exactly. So since December, we've received just a little north of 4,000 deaths. Now, the last 20 years, all vaccines combined have been reported about 4,000 deaths in the last 20 years.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Last 20 years.
In the last 20 years. And so now there's a website, Reuters fact-checked it.
Yeah.
Fact check this doctor in Texas. We're going to try to get him on actually later.
Reuters. It's okay.
Is it Reuters? Is it Reuters? It's kind of.
I always call it Reuters.
Yeah.
But is that the guy from Jim? Reuters?
And it's Hamas.
Just let him be Texan.
And Bella, what'd you say?
Belarus.
Oh man.
Because you know about
you guys got to catch the Daily News Brief.
Fresh Prince of Belarus.
You guys got to catch the Daily News Brief for this.
I just realized that most people don't know who Jill Scott is in this room. But anyway, that's another conversation.
I'm just so glad that we got all that love. And
I love Jill Scott.
And the Fight Laugh Feast
Scott.
family group, man.
That was great.
Pouring it on
From the Daily News
We love
Brief.
you.
Anyway, Gabe.
Yeah. And so what was I saying?
You were talking about the
Something about
report.
the CDC.
So
Reuters?
Yeah, Reuters. Now I'm stuck. I got to say it now. And so they fact checked this doctor who had also written this article, but this doctor in Texas who had been talking about this and testified in the Senate in Texas. This article, and they said he's misreporting or misstating the numbers because the doctor wasn't necessarily stating the fact that the website was kind of self-reported data and that it wasn't directly all correlated to the coronavirus, COVID-19 deaths of the vaccine. And so that's how they kind of fact-checked him. But all the doctor was saying was like, hey, man, we've had 4,000 deaths from vaccine since December.
Right. Yeah.
And we've had 4,000 deaths in the last 20 years from all vaccinations.
Yeah. And at the very least, remember how they reported COVID deaths.
That's right.
So like
with from what? Who,
it was just like all deaths reported.
Yep.
They had COVID. We tested them positive COVID.
That's a very good point.
And so let's at least be consistent. if we're going to make a distinction like, oh yeah, they got the vaccine, but then they died of cancer,
Yeah.
then we need to go back through and do the same thing with the statistics that we had for COVID-19.
So you guys remember the swine flu back in the 70s? The vaccines from that program got pulled.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was the Carter administration, wasn't it? The Carter administration. The swine flu happened, and they had all this government propaganda telling everyone to get the flu shot and so forth. And they found they pulled the vaccine after a correlated 50 people had died from it.
Wow. Now we've had 4,000.
And 4,000 deaths from vaccines.
Guys,
we
don't know yet what the outcome is going to be with this vaccine. We are still if it's not even really a vaccine, but we don't know what the outcome.
It's a human trial.
We
are the human trial.
Right.
Yeah.
Give it,
and maybe they've totally found the cure, but we don't know.
Well, what's crazy is the only number I've heard in all this is that 6 people have died from the vaccine.
Yeah.
That's the only number I've heard.
It's only 6?
That's what they reported regarding the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Okay.
That's it. But there's 4,000 people who've died since December from after taking a vaccine at some level, whatever it was. Maybe they died from a heart attack that we don't know.
Right.
But that's an alarming number that's being reported on the CDC's vaccination website.
I still haven't gotten off the fact that fact checkers, I don't think they have souls. I just don't. I really don't. So I was on Facebook. There was a guy on Facebook who's posted something that said he had a sign, he was holding it. Just because we disagree with each other doesn't mean that we can't be friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I got on the message and I said, kill him. Right? Joking.
Yeah,
right? That's what you would. They took the comment down and said, this violates our group standards and you're not allowed to say that. And so I appealed it. I was like, it was a joke because I actually agree with him.
Right.
Yeah, a little sarcasm.
Right.
Little sarcasm.
So this came back and said, we had an individual look at this and it still violates the standards.
No sarcasm.
because you can't be friends.
So
you can't be friends.
comedy is dead.
Yeah.
Sarcasm is dead. And actually the fact of agreeing with someone, they get to. So guys, Levitical law, it's inescapable.
Yeah.
But the fact that that's being controlled in that way right now should make everybody just a little bit concerned that they're even removing the ideas of kill him and actually agreeing with him can't.
Yeah.
They're controlling language.
Yeah, it's true.
Every form of language.
And speaking of which, Gabe, you're right. It actually is Reuters. I know somebody's on there's like mad.
Oh,
and
wow.
like, I was totally playing with you.
Yeah, you were being sarcastic.
Friends. You give my
We're friends. We're friends.
You don't want to.
Comedy's dead.
You don't want to.
Comedy's dead.
See, fact checker.
Toby killed it.
Toby killed it. You don't want to miss the next segment with Zach Lautenschlager. This man is going to...
He's a beast.
He's a beast. He's going to take you into the inside room of South Dakota
Political
politics.
ninja.
Is Christine Noem a conservative or no? We find out next.
Or Noem.
Noem. There you go. More cross-politic coming up next.
My name is Jamie Piles. I joined Samaritan in December of 1996, so I'm coming up on 24 years. When people ask me, does it really work? I say, oh, it works fantastic. I send my money to somebody every month. But we had a need. My wife spent a little bit of time in the hospital about 3 months ago, and so I had a checklist with about 39 names on it, and 39 checks came in. Some of the cards, some of the things people had to say, it was amazing to watch.
That's energy right there, Keith. That's how you start a segment.
I'm feeling the juice.
You feeling that now?
I will bring the energy that you guys need to this show.
Welcome
you guys are
back
wanting
to
in
Cross
energy.
Politic on the one and only Fight Laugh Feast Network. Thank you for joining us, and we are very grateful to not only have Mr. Keith, the campus preacher, Darrell, in the studio, but we got with us on the line, coming in hot on the Zoom, Zach
Lautenschlager.
Whoa. Okay.
I was going to say it, but I'll just let you say it from
I'm
now
sorry,
on.
Zach.
We have
I'm sorry.
Zach.
Lautenschlager.
You got to throw the wrench in sometimes.
You gotta do it.
He's ready for you.
He's a 22-year veteran of professional politics. Can you be a professional I guess you can. Working in
And keep your soul.
I was going to say, yeah.
That's what it is.
defense of rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. He's the past vice president of the National Association of Gun Rights. How you guys packing today?
Huh?
Yeah? Okay. Where he worked to build and lead its 4.5 million member army. He worked in 40 state legislatures, served as a registered federal lobbyist, put together and led the team which has made constitutional carry. the law in 17 states, including Idaho.
Yes.
Help
Idaho.
build
I need
and
to update that. It's 21.
Oh, 21 now.
Oh, old bio.
They've had a good run this year.
Boom. Run fundraising programs, raised over $45 million, created the National Foundation for Gun Rights, the organization's legal arm. Throughout his career, he's also served on and run more than 200 campaigns, ranging from
He didn't run mine.
Obviously.
He only runs winners.
Because he's had a success rate of over 80%. He
Yeah.
is an acknowledged expert in messaging, data management, door-to-door efforts, direct mail programs. He's a founding partner at Red Mountain Direct, which is now his current gig, full-service political consulting shop with an emphasis on legislative project management, campaign management, high-dollar fundraising, direct mail marketing, grassroots mobilization, leadership, and organizational management. He and his team are currently incubating a new issue advocacy organization to end abortion and to promote healthcare freedom. One of those is called Action for Life, and he'll tell us more about that on the show. Zach and his wife Amy live in northern Utah with their 7 children, where they enjoy homeschooling, family music, entertaining guests, and every outdoor activity ranging from skiing and mountaineering to sitting outside on a summer evening, which is
The best.
the best.
That's the
Hey,
best.
Zach, those babies baptized? Just wondering. You baptizing babies, Zach?
Well, I don't baptize them, but mine are baptized.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
They're
Pastor.
members
He's
of
Presbyterian. You remember
Berean-
when we had him on the show before? You
Well,
asked that same question?
You know,
He's
it's
just
okay.
Presbyterian.
It's
He's Orthodox Presbyterian.
OPC?
Yeah, he's
the
down.
only perfect church?
Yeah, he's. Hey, Zach.
Well, that's not true. I'm there.
Zach, thanks for coming back on Cross Politic. It's been a while. It's good to have you again.
Thanks for having me back.
Hey, one of
I
the things,
appreciate it.
Yeah, one of the things we want to talk to you about was the fact that, so given, your involvement in political endeavors, you got your finger a little bit, in the water, in the air.
Well, and he used to live in South Dakota, right?
And he's,
Is that-
hey,
That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
I was
He
going to
grew
ask.
up.
I was going to ask the question.
I was just filling it in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Question
finish.
number 1. There were 2 governors that basically pushed back against a lot of COVID stuff. DeSantis has come out swinging a little bit late.
Yeah.
But Kristi Noem in South Dakota never had any restrictions on her state, which was why I think it kind of struck a lot of us really strange and funny when all of a sudden the legislature offers up this tranny bill.
Yeah.
Saying, only biological boys and boy sports and biological girls and girls sports. And all of a sudden she's like, nah, I wouldn't want to go up against the NCAA.
After she'd already said, I'm signing the bill.
And she's been, and all that. Why did she do that? What's happened there? And what do you think's going on?
Right. So that's a great question. I've known Kristi since long before she was in the state legislature. She was there for 1 term and then ran for Congress and won. For those who followed her career, once she got to Congress, she right away allied with John Boehner, who was Speaker at the time, became one of his lackeys. Yes, unfortunately.
Wow.
It's not that a person can't redeem their political career,
Sure.
but that's where she really started, when she got to the big stage. Was the junior, kind of the junior member of the leadership team, sold a bunch of tax hikes, made Club for Growth and just about every other conservative organization in D.C. mad. And then she decided she was going to run for governor. And she got to be pretty well known. Once she became governor, she made a big deal about the fact that the first bill she signed was my constitutional carry bill. And then a year later, she gets famous, just exactly 1 year later, March last year, she gets famous for announcing that we're not going to mandate masks, we're not going to shut down the state.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, what hit the headlines, and that was all great. And that's much appreciated. I think that those were all obviously good moves.
Yeah.
And she demonstrated something. I also used to work with Ron DeSantis when he was in Congress. He was one of our allies. We worked together on several projects. Was a little disappointed early on. I agree. He was behind the curve. Interestingly, he's come out late, but has now sustained a much better run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even up to this point, obviously he's a politician. He's going to do stuff that's irritating. All of them do. It's just the way it is, Gabe. If you got into office, we would hate you now. Okay,
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Trust me.
Look, somebody would hate Gabe, but it wouldn't be us.
It wouldn't be. Yeah, that's right.
It is a fact of life, though. It's a reality that when a person gets into office, they're going to do things that not everyone likes, and sometimes it's going to happen. They will do things that offend me. It's really about figuring out how to push them into, put them in the box we want them in. So the background on Christie signing constitutional carry, for example, I'd worked on that since I was, my dad ran for office. I grew up in the state. My dad ran for office when I was just a kid. That's how I got into politics. When I got out of high school, I started to work in paid politics, but I'd been doing it all through high school with him. And we'd been working on constitutional carry. It was called Vermont carry back then because Vermont was the only state that had it.
Wow.
Of course,
Bernie
the NRA.
Sanders.
And, that's right. Yeah, figure that out. So in South Dakota, it was tied to us, to myself and my dad. If you go back to South Dakota and you go to the Capitol and you say the name Lautenschlager, people are going to, their eyes are going to get big and they're going to go, oh, those guys. And it's not going to be in a good way, which we're somewhat proud of. You'll see the color drain from faces. So they were holding the bill back because we supported it. At that point, you had 16 other states that had already passed it. When I went to work for the NHDR a decade ago, there were only 3 states by then. That was 2011. 3 states that had it. And we proceeded to pass it in about 13 states. And huge kudos to the team that did that and is still doing it. They just pulled it out of Texas this week, which is shocking. We did not think everything's bigger in Texas, including the arrogance of the politicians.
Yep.
And they are not in step with their people. So we thought it would take longer. Lots of celebration going on there. Kudos to those guys. But South Dakota was lagging behind, partially because they wanted to teach us a lesson. And so we came in 2019 and really started pushing it. The lieutenant governor was one of my oldest enemies in South Dakota, all the way from back when he was in the House. And he was trying to kill the bill, probably, as far as we can tell, at the behest, or at least with the permission of the new governor, Kristi Noem. Now, she had signed, I went to D.C. during the campaign when she was trying to get elected in 18. And is that right? Yeah, 18. And she sat down and I told her, look, your opponent's already signed our pledge to sign constitutional carry if we get it passed. And the reality is we had already passed it to the legislature about 4 times. And the preceding governor had vetoed it, and we'd worked him over. She followed him around to events. He'd been eaten alive multiple times by his own constituency. And so both candidates ended up signing our pledge. Christie signed it as well because she didn't want to be attacked. And so she was quietly, after having signed it, trying to get the legislature to kill it so that it wouldn't get to her desk. That was what was really going on.
Wow.
She was doing it through the lieutenant governor, Larry Roden, R-H-O-D-E-N, which is an unfortunate name if you're going to be a rat in politics. Yeah, so we made full use of that. We dropped his events. Why is Larry Roden trying to poison constitutional carry? I think that's how we said it.
Right.
We caught him red-handed. He backed off. He was not happy. And the story goes that after we worked him over considerably, he went back to the Sunday evening meeting before the legislature starts. They're sitting around, and I have my friends who were in that meeting. They report that he was whining and complaining, and these people are terrible. And Christie, and he explains what they did, which is a politician's nightmare, showing up at the events they're supposed to be in charge of and making the constituents mad, and then they have to spend the whole evening explaining, and it's just not fun. And so Christie rocked back in her chair and said, well, that's the way these people are going to act. Let's just give them constitutional carry. In other words, we forced her hand. She could not actually come out and oppose it. And they got tired of paying the price for running contrary to their good, gun-loving, God-fearing constituents. So she rolled her desk out into the rotunda of the Capitol, which is rare, and got everybody around and announced, this is my first bill. This is how pro-gun I am, that the first bill I ever signed as governor is constitutional carry.
Yeah.
I just swallowed the fact that we made her do it. So fast forward a year, her Health and Human Services director, who works directly for her, has 2 bills running through the legislature, and they get them all, all the way through to the House, I believe it was. But these bills do 2 things: allow state government to mandate masks and allow state government to shut down the state.
Oh, wow.
They had to change the law in order to do that. These are her administration's bills.
Wow.
They are moving because they have her full blessing. They get to the state house, and by this time, we're just off of passing constitutional carry. We've been working the legislative races for a decade, and winning between 10 and 15 state house seats every cycle.
Wow.
Wow.
And so we have a lot of friends in the House at this point. And I really wasn't working it. I was working in another state, but these dudes are all solid, just great dudes. They parlayed, and there's about 20 of them, they parlayed the House was mad at Christie because of some other stuff, and so they killed her bill.
Yeah.
They killed her bill. And so Christie takes a couple days, comes out and says, you know what? I'm the most conservative governor in America, and we're not going to shut the state down is my idea.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's a problem? Well, she's not being honest. That's a problem. But do I have a problem with her reversing course and doing the right thing because people made her do it? No, not at all. That's the way it should work. We need to stop expecting that we're going to get our politicians elected and just send them down there and that they're just going to do the right thing. That's not the way it works. Eternal vigilance as the price of freedom was not just about a shooting war.
Yeah.
That's not eternal vigilance. That happens very rarely.
Yeah.
When Patrick Henry said that, Jefferson said something similar. They were referring to holding our politicians accountable. When Benjamin Franklin said, I've given you a republic if you can keep it, that's what he was talking about. They gave us a system in which the playing field is slanted our way. But guess what? The other side will always win if we don't show up, if we don't run candidates, win races, and then hold the politicians accountable. We don't have to control every seat in the legislature.
Sure.
2 or 3 is enough. Look at what Priscilla Giddings has done and her allies, Heather Scott, many others that I'm failing to mention. I'm not just, there are many that get credit there, but look at what they've done and what they've built in Idaho. You guys know this very well.
Right.
Is it a perfect? No. But are the bad guys scared silly? Yes.
Yeah.
Yesterday's event with McGeehan, governor for a day, and what did she do? Repeals all the mask mandates across the board. Priscilla actually wrote it yesterday morning.
Wow.
She wrote the executive order for Janice.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And that's the type of thing that if we are there and we're taking the seats and we are fighting back, it is unbelievable what can be accomplished in the face of the majority who doesn't care.
Yeah.
And the reality is our forefathers looked at that and said, look, it's human nature. You look at what they wrote. They said it will never be wonderful. It's not always going to be great. There will often be a majority of politicians who are just there to serve themselves. So what did they do? They set up a system where in order to even be in office so they can serve themselves, they have to make us happy. So are we not happy? Well, then do something about it.
Right.
Wow.
Zach,
get involved, run races.
Zach, I just, right now, I really don't like you. I just want to tell you right now, I really don't like you. You kind of, listening to you talk to this is, I'm starting to sweat and my emotions are kind of getting the best of me right now because I want someone who I believe has a form of integrity in such a way.
And principles.
Yeah.
And backbone.
In such a way that when the pressure comes, they have such a principle. They don't need to have 30, Athanasius Contra Mundum, right? I want someone like that who's willing to sit. But the way that you're talking about this game of politics, it sounds like we're not going to have that kind of person.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that kind of person never comes along. But let's look at the facts. Let's look at how things have worked. And we go way back past American history, but let's just stop there. We love to look at George Washington. We like his character. And there are many things to like about George Washington. But what about Shays' Rebellion? What about where he called out the army and actually went out and shut down some dudes who, were they behaving properly? No, they needed to be stopped. But the reality was at the base of their complaint, it was correct. They were largely right. It was government overreach. And so we want to imagine that we can take fallen, sinful human beings and by the grace of God, they could be elected and we could just turn our backs and live our lives and be our happy little people out here and expect to be left alone. The reality is that is a farce. It is not that there will not be ever a principled person. Of course there will be. There are right now in every state, there are principled legislators who are working very hard and doing the right thing when no one is looking, which is one of the true marks of character.
Right.
But that is not what saves America. That is not what defends your freedom. That is not. So this is not an attack on the great man. This is not an assault on the concept of there being a principled statesman. Yes, of course, and that is what Scripture commands. But the reality is, it's just like if we had that perspective in our churches, we would just preach Sunday morning, and that's it. Great, we told them what to do. Now go do it. That's all there is to it, right?
Yeah.
Nah, there's a lot of one anothering going on there.
Right.
And it's not in the same in the sense that it's the basis of the Lord Jesus Christ and our community in Him.
Yeah.
That's not the case for politics. This is not an ecclesia, but it is a community,
right?
And it is one under the lordship of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And He's placed commands on them and on us, and we're supposed to enforce it and not just send them into the wilds and expect them to perform.
I think one of the things that I've learned in the last, really since we started Cross Politic, is that the church has forgotten that they need to continually fighting. Fighting, mortifying your sin, fighting your own sin, but also fighting evil in our culture, working hard to create a good community. Like it takes real effort and real fighting. And then you apply this to politics. Christians have even just absolutely abandoned the political realm in the last, or at least, my generation, the last 40 years. And we've abandoned it, and we've stopped fighting in a way that, creates what you've been doing, creating, kind of pushing the right kind of, the leaders to do the right thing.
Right.
Why has that happened? Why have we stopped fighting, in the church and in culture and politics?
Why have Christians been so non-vigilant?
Yeah.
And I think that the easy answer is we've stopped applying the Word of God to our lives and recognizing that Jesus Christ is Lord over every area of life. Specifically when it comes to Jesus Christ being Lord over the political and cultural areas of our lives, it's because we've imbibed this idea that, well, as long as I'm not being actually directly commanded to do something that's specifically that I believe and I recognize is specifically forbidden or being commanded not to do something, then I don't have to be involved. And we ignore the command in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 22 through 24, which ends, you were bought with a price. Do not become the slaves of men. Now, the context of that discussion is a very balanced command, which includes and encompasses the reality that we all have a certain level of slavery and a certain level of freedom. And that, for those of you who think, well, I'm an American, I'm not really a slave. Really, can you get your wallet out and can you show me that hard card that's got your picture on it?
Oh.
If you're an adult, you've got one.
Bars.
And it says...
He's talking about driver's license.
Yeah, you have permission from the state to drive.
Yeah.
Stating the obvious is always beneficial.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. That's why I exist on the show.
On this earth.
It's a gift, though. It's a gift.
We're very true.
So, there's so much. We just got
there's a lot there. Yeah.
To the tip of this iceberg, but I just want to move real quick into right now with what you do with Action for Life. Have you paid attention to the SCOTUS case with Mississippi that they're taking up right now? What's your thoughts on that?
Right. So, when we wade into that, I think the important first question is, do we believe in the fairy tale, and I'm just going to say it, fairy tale of judicial supremacy? Okay? That is simply false.
Yep.
What do you mean by that? Judicial supremacy?
Well, today when people say judicial supremacy, they mean that there is one final arbiter of the meaning of the Constitution. That if the Supreme Court says it means something, that every other branch and level of government must simply roll over and play dead.
Like with Dred Scott case, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because we know that's always happened in American history. In the 1850s, when the Supreme Court repeatedly ruled against black people, and eventually directly implied that Chocolate Knox is not human.
Right.
That's right.
Or his ancestors.
They did that
were
in
not
this
human.
country?
They did it in this country.
Whoa.
So is judicial
I know,
supremacy the
yeah.
same as white
Shocking.
supremacy?
It's worse.
Yeah,
It's way worse. It's way worse.
And what did the rest of what did multiple states say? What did the rest of the federal government say? They said, that's insane.
Right.
We're not doing that.
Right.
Andrew Jackson was an interesting dude, and I don't agree with everything, but Chief Justice John Marshall hated Andrew Jackson, and he was more on the national bank side of things. And when Marshall would hand down decisions that would rein in and curtail Jackson's, as president, Jackson's actions to try to fight back against the Hamiltonian vision of a national bank, Jackson would simply say, well, Chief Justice Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that.
I wish our police were like that.
Yeah,
Well,
seriously.
yes, and frankly, there are some really great county sheriffs, as you know, some great county sheriffs out
Sheriff
there
Wheeler.
who have exactly that attitude that says, well, hang on. You are not the Constitution, okay?
Right.
The Constitution is the Constitution. You can give your opinion. However, if within our sphere we believe that you are dramatically and grossly wrong, then it is not just our right, it is our duty to say, yeah, we're not enforcing that.
Right.
We're not going to do that.
And that's the whole vision of checks and balances. The whole
Correct.
idea of having separation of powers was all three of these powers have particular areas they focus on, but they were to check one another, and not one of them was over the other.
But Romans
Then that is
13
the
only
problem.
applies to the judicial Supreme Court, right? Right.
Shut up.
Yeah, I mean,
What were we going to say, Zach?
Let every person be subject.
That's right.
that's right.
So
Maybe that includes the Chief Justice,
Amen.
maybe.
I think it does.
So then what?
unless he's not human.
Oh.
Well, the way they're
That's
defining
possible
humans,
now.
the way they're
Yeah.
defining humans these
Yeah.
days,
Is he born yet?
that's the
Yeah.
question.
Look, as much as I disagree with Roberts, yeah, he's a man made in God's image.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
So then what you see happening in Ohio, Lebanon, Ohio, where they're actually deciding to make sanctuary cities is really how everybody should be looking at the ruling on Roe v. Wade, and not just what happens in the next cycle with the Supreme Court right now.
Well, here's the problem. Now, I haven't had a chance to go read the Lebanon ordinance yet or resolution, but I am going to bet money that it is the same as every other sanctuary city resolution that has passed, which is absolutely bows the knee to judicial supremacy. They always say, as soon as the Supreme Court decides that we can do this, then we're doing it.
Oh, I see. Oh.
That is what they all say.
Then is it just pure symbolism? What would be the purpose?
I mean, so I don't know how that would. I mean, just I'm looking at some of the information now. They actually have a punishment for months in jail and $1,000 fine. So,
But it only kicks in if Roe versus
Only
Wade
kicks in.
is
Well, we just got to
canceled.
confirm that. We got to
Yes,
confirm
it
that.
needs to be confirmed at Lebanon, but I can tell you that, for example, the ones that were recently, Texas has had a huge run of these.
Yep.
And look, as far as building the political grassroots function, the grassroots machine that you need, building the support, this is a great thing to do. It mobilizes people. It gets them out. I get that. I get that. But why are we stopping short of saying what we actually are telling people we're saying?
see, that's real talk.
We get all this news that this is what's going on, and the reality is Planned Parenthood looks at that and says, yeah, whatever, bite me.
Yeah, and see, Zach, I agree with you on this because I'm watching people be super bold right now as it relates to critical race theory, and watching governors come out for their whole state and say we're banning critical race theory in our government schools. And I'm like, wait, you have options here for abortion too. You ain't never taken a bold stand like that.
Yeah, but if they're actually murdering babies, I was thinking like this last year. I mean, COVID, 2020 kind of was like my moment where I was like, for a long time, I was thinking, okay, there's a lot of red tape and government bureaucracy, and I was sort of giving the benefit of the doubt. But as soon as the governor says there's a health emergency, people might die, shut it all down.
Yeah.
Right.
And everybody bowed down. I was like, whoa, wait a second. So
You can't do that for abortion?
What about the 1,300 babies that just got murdered in my state last year?
I could point you to a health emergency.
Yeah,
Right, and even in the middle of that, you had some states in which the shutdowns actually technically included Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood said, yeah, no, we're essential, we're not doing it.
Right.
And you fought back and forth, and in some states, and this is something we did, we said, well, okay, we're shut down, that's not right, but if you're going to do it, it has to apply to the abortion clinics. And we actually did fight them to a standstill. They actually had to stop making appointments. They had to stop doing things. And it got pushed all the way through. But what that came down to is you had to force the executive, the attorney general, the governor, to be willing to stand up and actually do something about it. Cities that are banning abortion, if they had the intestinal fortitude to actually do what they have sworn to do, they raised their right hand and they swore to defend and uphold the Constitution when they took office. Okay, that means that the right to life is paramount. So if we're going to say that, well, we're going to ban abortion, then why are we not arresting the abortionists? Why are we not turning mothers away and arresting them when necessary? Why are we not arresting the dudes who are coercing and driving the mothers to the clinics? I know that none of us like discussing whether or not we're going to arrest an abortive mother, a mother who's trying to abort her child. And I know there's always that example that springs to mind of someone who doesn't know or is being coerced. Well, and I agree. That happens not all the time, but it does happen semi-frequently, semi-regularly on people who kill people who've been born, right? But what's the difference? You know, if you take a day-old baby and a mom takes a shoelace and strangles that baby in the crib, and now it's a ghastly. Did she commit?
It's not
murder?
like you'd eradicate due process. You know what I mean? If they're being arrested, it's not like we just round them all up. There's no trial or anything.
All the factors get taken into account. Absolutely.
Correct. And they want to say that, well, this is not due process. They don't even say that. They just say, well, you're just going to round up mothers and execute them.
No. Right now we round up people who sing psalms, though, outside of city council.
Let me tell you something. We are, with the push that Black Lives Matter has had in our culture, we are not allowing police officers to do cruel things to black people in our culture and tolerating it.
Right.
And maybe we're doing about, 32 a year, maybe something like that.
32 what?
Black people that are dying at the hands of police officers. I'll give you.
Without a weapon.
No. I'm giving above and saying like, okay,
be generous.
They absolutely killed them and they wanted to kill black people that day.
They're bad police officers.
Right, they're bad police officers. I'm giving you that. I'm not even taking
There might be 32.
There might be 32. I'll give you that whole thing.
A year in the nation.
Black women right now are having abortions 3 to 4 times more than the majority culture in America. They make up 13 to 14%. And abortion doctors are going through stabbing babies in the back of the head and sucking them out the womb of a mother.
Right.
And we're sitting up at such a rate that, like when we were talking about this, it's not even a drop in the bucket of the ocean.
The police brutality thing is not a drop in the bucket to the black genocide
that is going on right now.
And it's like, you want to talk about brutality.
Yeah, and that's just black people. That's not everybody else. That's just one minority culture. Hispanics are at the same rate. They're right below us in the same process.
And if you step back and think about it, that was part of Margaret Sanger's plan. It's like, how do we limit the birth of black babies? And one of those things was, let's appeal to the clergy to get our message out because they'll trust the clergy. And so it's amazingly successful, especially when Planned Parenthood, I don't know if it still is, but the national director used to be a black woman. And you're just like, you're so successful. You know what I mean? Their plan's successful.
Right.
So, Zach, really quick, I want to talk to you about gun rights. I want to talk to you about a whole bunch of stuff. We got to run, but would you really quick just talk about what you do at Action for Life and how people can support what you're doing?
Well, I appreciate that. You can go to takeactionforlife.com to check us out. Takeactionforlife.com, takeactionforlife.org. So we're working in 25 states this cycle. We have legislation going in 10 states, one of which is Idaho. Our goal is to end abortion, to actually ban it. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't other things we can do, defunding Planned Parenthood, enforcing current law.
Right.
What we do want to avoid
is that like defund the police where you're really just shifting money around, or is it a genuine defunding?
Right. No, and there are many that say, well, we're going to defund Planned Parenthood, and so we write a bill that says, you can't use any of the money that we're already giving you to do abortions. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're giving me $10,000 a year, I can probably figure out how to reallocate the money I already have to do the things that you say I can't do with the money. So, no, this is our legislation. We actually have been all the way to the Supreme Court, this issue has, on whether or not states can deprive abortion providers, abortionists, of the federal dollars that the feds give to the states and then say, here, dole this out. And we're actively working on that. South Carolina, we just came off of a budgeting, we're in the middle of it. It will be in a couple of weeks, we'll actually be down to the vote. But we've actually passed it there multiple times and had it struck down, and then we won, and then we lost, and then we're still doing it. We're saying, well, that's fine. The courts can do what they're going to do. So if you want to actually end abortion and not nibble around the edges, then this is the correct tactic. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do anything else. So, of course, there are multiple ways to attack this. But if we're not, at the end of the day, always saying, yes, but check out our bill, which actually does ban abortion. We are actually outlawing it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. If that's not at the back of everything we're doing, then we're not really being honest.
Right.
We're saying, well, we want to abolish abortion in 30 years. Well, it's already been 50.
Yeah.
And the tactics we're using now, that's why I say that we must recognize that there is no such thing as judicial supremacy.
Right.
Certainly not in the Constitution. You can create it. You can give 9 justices the authority to make law for everyone else. But that is not constitutional, and no one thinks that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The left does not think that. They believe in judicial supremacy when they're winning.
Right.
When they lose, they say, that's it. I think we're going to secede.
Yeah. Right. Our state.
We need to stack the courts. We need to do whatever. So no one believes that. That is the only people who believe that, apparently, are conservatives who get hoodwinked into it. So it is time to end that.
Ouch. Ouch.
You're going to end there. You're going to end right there with that?
Yeah. Zach, we got to have you back on, man. I appreciate you, brother. TakeActionForLife.com, right?
TakeActionForLife.com.org.
Okay, Zach, thank you for coming on, man. Appreciate you. More Cross Politic coming up next. Woo.
Hi, I'm Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations. Our most precious commodity is time. No one has ever lied on their deathbed wishing they had spent more time making money. They all wish they had spent more time creating a legacy. Our modern education system steals that legacy, steals that time from our children. That's why I'm passionate about homeschooling. That's why at Classical Conversations we want to give you more time to create that legacy, follow your passions, and glorify God. Visit classicalconversations.com for more information.
This segment is brought to you by Talisker. Smoky, delicious gold.
And for this segment,
delicious.
You can call me Tony. Tony.
It's going to be one of those days.
Tony.
We had a very generous listener give us Scotch glasses. They got Gabe right, but they put Tony on Toby's glass.
Who's playing clips?
It's probably Gabe.
Look at you.
It's off. All right, let's go.
He's like, Talisker.
You're fired.
Talisker. Hey, don't forget to download the app also. This is the best way to consume our network content because that's where you can get Fight Laugh Feast Canada.
Yeah.
All the shows dropping from our Canadian brothers up there. We got more shows we're going to be rolling out here soon from Canada. And then, of course, that's where you can get Mark Dewey in the Bullpen, Campus Preacher.
Yeah.
All the good. The comedian next door.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What was your last podcast?
It was a few weeks ago.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I just wanted.
I was mildly encouraged. Someone stopped me today. He's like, "Hey, where's your podcast at?"
Yeah.
I was like, I was on a beach trying to listen to podcasts. Like, where's Keith's podcast at? So,
yeah.
Monday.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Monday.
Hey, so Zach Lautenschlager just kicked us in the teeth.
Yes, he did.
And
boy, I don't like that dude right now.
Man, right there at the end there, the thing he was noting that conservative Christians, judicial supremacy is not real. It's not a doctrine. It's not a real thing. And nobody really believes it. The left only believes it when it suits them, but they don't really believe it. He says, except for some conservative Christians,
right,
who are like, well, I guess the Supreme Court said it, so I guess we have to do it. I mean, but one of the things they're doing though is they understand the potency of language. Mm-hmm. God created the world by speaking.
Yeah,
the eternal Word is the eternal Son who became flesh and dwelt among us. There is great power in language. The postmodernists have a point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They recognize that narrative and story and language is power. Now, the problem is they think that then means everything reduces to just power and violence because there's no God above.
That's right.
And it's not the triune God. It's not the God who is love. It's not the God who sent his Son to die for sinners.
Yeah. How does faith come?
But it
comes by hearing the word.
But words are powerful,
right.
And therefore, if you're going to live in God's world, you have to deal with the potency of language.
Right.
So,
real quick before you go turn that corner, and we Christians don't miss this because we know that words have power in our confession of sin.
Right.
We know when we confess our sin to one another.
In all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
In the proclamation of the gospel, how does faith come? By the word.
Yeah.
When we confess our sins.
When you wronged your wife, you confess your sin.
You really are able, God really does act through the word of, I sinned, please forgive me, I forgive you. And you're actually reconciled.
And kind of intertwined, like, there's a truth to sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. that's kind of false from a Christian perspective.
Right, sure.
The use of language, and so
Sure.
I grew up saying that, and so you're kind of hard, and anybody would say anything like, "Oh, no big deal, as long as I'm not getting beat."
Right.
And so, yes, so there's truth, or there's a lie to that slogan that I grew up with, and then when you run with it, then people begin to respond to it, and so rather than being a proper corrective, we as Christians should set forth, no, language is there for truth, it's there for beauty, it's there for goodness.
Well,
This is
and
why
I want to go meta real quick. You're
gonna go meta.
Yeah, you don't turn on water without that's word.
Yeah.
Everything that's created is
all
your
of
word.
creation is word.
It's word.
It's the word of the Creator. He
That's
said,
right.
"Let there be lights. Let there be water. Let there be earth. Let there be plants. Let there be people." We are all held together by the word.
And the reason why it's all here is because God is still speaking.
Exactly.
You are recreated.
God stopped speaking, the world disappears.
And the rebellion was a lie. And the root rebellion was a lie about the nature of reality.
So this is why Pastor Doug always says that at root, all battle, all war is a war over a dictionary.
Yeah.
It's over the right to define the world. And so we're either defining the world and speaking about the world truthfully, according to the way God made it, or else we're listening to lies and we're repeating lies. But that's fundamentally what the war is.
Yeah.
And many times our enemies are a lot more sly. And, hey, the devil was a liar from the beginning. He was a crafty serpent. He said, "Did God really say?" So it shouldn't be surprising to us that the world comes at us with subtle lies. And so it's, this he is now a she. This she is now a he. That's potential life,
And they're proclaiming it.
It's a potential human being. It's a clump of cells. But it's all a battle of a dictionary.
That's right.
We were just talking on the break about what is this? It's super straight.
Super straight.
One of our
Super straight.
Super straight.
He said not the super straight.
No Rick James on the show. no Rick James. No.
One of our audience members said that apparently when you
Who works for free?
One of the 4 of our audience members.
Yeah. So this is like what kind of where are these signups are? Like where is this like?
You have to declare
For what? What is this for?
On a dating site, I think.
dating sites, anything.
Okay. So dating sites. Speaking of which, Keith is single. So is Neil, right? No?
Yeah, it's true.
Neil, you still single?
But his foot's broken right now, so he might want to wait.
Oh yeah.
You can come nurse him. Is that right? Can you edit that, Neil?
But so you're signing up for a dating site, and now you're being asked. Not only are you straight instead of like whatever bi, trans, all the rest of stuff,
super straight.
Super
It's either
straight.
straight or confused. That's all.
Right, but but apparently it's so like you're a dude and you want to date a girl, but if that girl used to be a guy or guy's wearing a dress and you're like, oh no, I'm not into that. I won't do that. Then you're not straight anymore.
You're super straight.
You're super straight. Hyper straight.
This is
angry straight. But this is the battle of words.
But can I just say real quick though, they just took straight from us.
If we
got
let
into
them.
the car,
If we let them.
and drove it off the cliff.
If we let them.
You know
Because
what?
here's the thing: a bunch of conservative Christians are going to take super straight and they're going to put it on a T-shirt.
That's exactly right.
It's going to be at Daily Wire tomorrow. Right?
I'm super straight.
I'm super straight. And you're like, no, I know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You're trying to say I'm loud and proud and I don't care. But you just walked right into the play, and now you got defined.
You have to listen to Nate Wilson's talk at the rally. He goes through this so well.
Do not fight losing battles. Do not rush at the enemy, not knowing how to fight. Don't.
That's right.
Don't just run into the spear.
They got you to do it,
and that's exactly. And so we're made in the image of God. We're male and female. We're heterosexual because that is what Christ is making us into. He's remaking us into the whole human beings that we were created to be, male and female. And that means that in Christ we are made to orient to one another as men and women in marriage, but also in community.
Yeah.
And we need to get our heads straight on this. Super straight on this. No, not super straight.
This goes. So I just want to do a quick plug here. So I've started doing. I'm going to do these series every week, or do a series. But every week I'm going to have somebody on. But right now we're going through the idea of metaphysics. Yeah. And I just had a conversation with and that's what you're talking about. Yeah. What are you and what are you for? Right. And that's something that Christians have. If you go out and you try and Google and look for a Christian metaphysicist, you don't find them. Right. They're not there. And it's because Christians have given up on this whole idea, which is why we have women pastors. This is why we have everybody's just so messed up, which is why we're sending our kids to government school. Right. So we don't have a Christian metaphysics at all. Right. When as it relates to this. And so I'm right now it's called Knocks on unplug, go to the app, get it, download.
Are you going to have me on Knox Unplugged?
Yes, I am.
I was just saying, I'm
absolutely.
reading some John Searle right now, which applies all this. Let's go talk to John
the same play is being run, and a whole lot of conservatives are doing this weekend. And I'll just do this because I don't have enough time on my hands. You guys just send your hate mail to Waterboy.
Sure.
But it's Memorial Weekend, and everybody's going to be celebrating all the men and women that have been in combat.
Yep.
Right? That is a shame.
Yeah.
A crying shame. Now, were their lives valuable? Absolutely. Were they made in the image of God?
100%.
Absolutely.
100%, yep.
But particularly the women that were sent to front lines in combat.
We shouldn't have did
that. That is a crying shame.
Yep.
And every man in this country ought to be ashamed of it.
That's right.
And far too many conservatives are just, because we are pro-military or whatever.
Yeah.
And you are swallowing the lie.
Because we have a broken metaphysics.
And now you're stuck.
Yeah, and we brushed on it a couple weeks ago when I was on the show, but the way Hannity rolls out Bruce, and then you also had the Republicans lamenting some strand of whatever Biden was doing because women are out of work. And so now we kind of take their narrative and think we're gonna push it against them, but all it really shows is they've won the discussion.
Right.
They can walk off the field.
When Hannity sits down and has a reasonable conversation with Bruce Jenner dressed up in a dress.
Without laughing.
Yep. Without saying, that's a funny clown suit you got on, because you're not really a woman.
Or saying, how dare you insult women this way?
Exactly. Then what you're doing is you're accepting the naming. He's naming himself a woman.
If Hannity sat down with Blackface Northam out of Virginia, and he had that conversation with a straight face with him while he's wearing blackface,
like as if he's a black man.
I would get fear. I don't get too much worked up about some of this stuff because the culture wants me to.
Hannity would be dead now.
There's Fox would have been canceled. No one would, because he's went too far. But here it's acceptable.
And we've said this many times, but racial difference is far less than gender difference.
And the thing
that's chromosomal. Right?
Yeah.
Knox and I, we got different amount of pigment in our skin,
yes.
but we are male, made in the image of God. We have far more in common than a man and a woman. Though we're still made in the image of God, it's all the way down in our genes and DNA.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because they want the diversity to be Knox and me. Like that's maximum diversity right there. Not me and a female. Right. Whereas it's you and me and the female is maximum diversity.
Because that is where the image of God is displayed.
That's right.
In the glory of male and female. That's where the glory of God is particularly displayed. So they've got to find out some kind of other diversity because it's a different God they want us to be made in the image of.
It's inescapable.
That's right.
Yeah. This goes back to Lautenschlager's interview, where we were talking about how kind of Christians are kind of missing the boat and not being involved in politics and all that stuff, and it's because Christians have kind of forgotten the written word of God as being powerful in our lives and in the church and in this world,
right?
And that's why we're actually kind of ashamed of the gospel. We're ashamed to go proclaim God's word.
We don't believe it's powerful.
We don't believe it's powerful,
right.
And so we try to find ways to kind of make peace or to negotiate God's truth in this world and politics.
We think because our water has a little less poop in it.
Yeah.
That's bars.
You had to do it. You had to go there.
But I'd say the left or the hardcore progressives get the issue better, the antithesis better, and they're willing to run roughshod over it. And the Christians are just like, hey, just accept us at the table. Now, there's obviously we want to be gracious and loving and have our answers seasoned with salt and all that sort of stuff. And I think in our attempts to do that, we're willing to kind of sell the farm. Where what we need to do is lean back in and just say, yeah, there's an absolute antithesis here, and you guys need grace, you need mercy. Because at the end of the day, like what we're saying is true about reality. Like everybody knows you need male and female.
And it is for the good of the world. That's the thing.
You can't have civilization without it.
Standing on this truth is because you love your neighbor. And you're getting, everything's getting flipped and spun and saying, you hate your neighbor. You're a hater. You're a bigot. You're, homophobe. All the rest, you're a transphobe. No. I love my neighbor.
And I love civilization.
And I know that gravity exists. Right?
Yeah.
I know that there's facts about the way God made the world. And this is for your good. This is for your blessing. An example of the word of God mattering. I was thinking about this after our show with Doug last week.
On ganja.
It's been a week.
On ganja.
Talking
marijuana.
about weed with Pastor Wilson. If you missed
such
it,
a good show.
Catch it. One of the things we were talking about a little bit with him, though, was the difference between sins and crimes. And one of the places where, sort of the Christian libertarian impulse kind of pushes up and says, all right, but where does it say
that marijuana
is a crime?
Yeah, that's right.
And Doug said, granted that, basically says, I'm actually pro decriminalizing it, but that doesn't mean there shouldn't be any regulations related to it.
That's what was good about his book.
And so he was proposing like sort of this, sort of a separate line, a drug court sort of thing to sort of suppress it without it being completely criminalized.
And he's saying, given where we're at right now,
exactly.
this is my proposal.
Let's not give a drunk another, fifth. It's like that's not helpful for them, especially, when they're going to drive home right now.
Right.
And we were talking a little bit afterwards, and I was trying to figure out, so this is part of the fun and the adventure and the glory of it. God gave us a book. He gave us words.
Yeah.
And it's light for our path. It's light for everything. We need to study it and say, okay, God has truth for us here. And one of the things we've talked a lot about is it's not the government's, it's not the civil magistrate's job
to regulate it.
To be preventative, to try to prevent crimes from happening. Their job is to punish
the crimes that do.
The crimes that actually happen and do so biblically, not just a slap on the hand, not bad, you murdered 10 people, well, okay.
No,
well, you're a victim
penalty.
of society, so we'll punish society.
Death penalty, like actually make the punishments matter and stick.
I would actually say that every punishment that our government currently doing is punishing society.
Yeah.
They're not punishing
everybody's a victim of something behind them, and so you have to punish somebody.
We treat them like animals, and we stick them in cages.
Yeah.
Well, just in the fact that if you rob from somebody else, it's you versus the state.
Right. Rather than
the victim actually being.
Just go put it right. Biblical justice says go put it right. Do the restitution, pay off what you broke, what you stole, whatever, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Just pay back what
There's
you actually
not enough money in that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But as we were talking about this, here's an example that was like, okay, but what do you do? Like, what's the biblical standard for somebody who is the drunkard? Who is the glutton? Who is this? Who is the pothead? Who is really doing damage
and super rebellious and all this?
And there's actually a law. It turns out.
Yeah.
It's in
the Bible.
It's in the Bible. It's like I wonder if there's a verse about this. There actually is. And this is in Deuteronomy 21. It says,
it's Old Testament. We don't do that.
And Jesus quotes from Deuteronomy over and over again.
Oh, wow.
It says, as it is written. It says, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, so they've disciplined him, they tried to correct him, he's not listening, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him. I like how it says mom and his dad, they lay hold on him. And they bring him out to the elders of the city.
They each grab an ear. He's like,
and they bring him out to the elder of the city, to the gate of his place. So that's the public square. Now you bring him to the magistrates of the city now. And they shall say to the elders of the city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He's a glutton and a drunkard. Okay? I think pot smoking would be included in that.
You said glutton and drunkard already.
And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he dies. So shall thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear.
And it's important to note that the Old Testament gives us maximum and minimum penalties.
Yes. So first of all, it's like you really believe that there could be a situation where some son is so rebellious, so wicked that it would be just to put him to death. Yes, absolutely.
Have you ever been to Chuck E. Cheese? Of course.
That's not what we're talking about.
Have you been to Chuck E. Cheese?
But have you seen juvenile delinquents? Have you been to juvie?
That's what I mean. That's inescapable. That concept is inescapable.
Exactly. But here's the thing. It is a maximum penalty. And so the point is that fathers and mothers absolutely have authority to do preventative justice.
Absolutely.
Right. Civil magistrates don't. And so here's a little.
And so does the church, as far as that government's concerned too.
Exactly. And so here's the point. In a more biblical Christian society, here's an example. Notice, it's not the cops going after the kid.
Yeah.
It's the parents who are the magistrates of the home, bringing their hard case, their difficult case, to the magistrate.
Right.
And they're inviting the magistrate to bring a civil penalty to help them. There's an example, though. The family, we talk about this all the time, but church, family, and state are three governments that God has instituted under the lordship of Jesus Christ.
Forget that.
And this goes back to what we're talking about with Zach. It's modeled, and that's why our country was modeled this way, of sort of checks and balances, of a separation of powers. This is another place where God has instituted separation of powers. The church is word and sacrament and worship. The family is health, welfare, education. The state is punishing criminals. Justice.
That's their job.
That's all they do. But when you have a criminal, and maybe you have somebody who's going up to the edge of crimes, but he hasn't quite crossed the line, he's not actually killed somebody yet, but he's getting dangerous.
He's smoking pot.
He's swerving all over the road.
Yeah.
It's perfectly legitimate for one of those other governments to go to another government and say, would you help us with this You got the sword. You got civil penalties. Can you help us? And presumably, it could be less than just the death penalty.
Right.
They could also, there's places in there
Minimum,
where
maximum.
you can give up to 40 stripes. It's like maybe he needs a magistrate.
One of the things
sometimes you just need to take your kid to the pastor.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we kind of do this, but we don't do it in the right category.
Right.
So when you turn on a TV show and you see Maury Povich or you see Dr. Phil, and then you see the parent, bringing their child up there and saying, "My teenager is out of control.
Right.
What do I do?
I'm here to scare you straight."
Exactly. But that's one of the family government is saying, I've lost the reins here, but
I need other help.
I've even seen mothers take their kids to companies and say, "Listen, he stole from you. Okay. I'm not trying to raise a son that steals. He is yours. Break him."
My mom did that when I was younger. I stole bubble gum from a store, and she brought me back and brought me to the manager and confess your sins, and
or take him to the if your kid is getting into trouble, but it's not like quite crossed the line yet.
Yeah,
take him to the fire department.
That's
have the fire marshal give him a lecture. Put the fear of God in him. Take him to the police department. Have the police officer sit down with him and say, "You know where you're going. You know what can happen." And that's actually a legitimate way that different governments can work together. You can invite another government to come in to take over something. Now, you can't just give over your responsibility.
No,
you can't just give that up.
There's limitations in that too. The restrictions that you're putting on them. It's like, listen, I want.
but right now we got the opposite problem. We got a government that's bloated, the Jabba the Hutt state, that is reaching into all the other governments, saying you can't meet. Here's the fire code. Here's the health code. We're the nanny. We're going to take care of your Social Security. We're going to take care of your welfare. We're going to take care of your child rearing. We're going to take care of all these things. That's not the job that God gave them to do. And when we do that, we again go back to the power of language. Their providing and provision has created this Jabba the Hutt state, and it has completely run roughshod over the other governments that God has established.
So this is I've been giving like everybody's. What do you got your Bible open for?
It's a little late now, but I'll just say
It's never too late for the Bible, Keith.
Well, it was this, and so even just from a hermeneutical standpoint, the fulfillment of the drunken glutton. What do they accuse Jesus of? They say, "Son of John the Baptist came neither eating or drinking." You say he's demon possessed. The Son of Man comes eating and drinking. You say he's a drunk and a glutton. So the accusation is, you're not the Son of God. You're a drunk and a glutton. You
They're
should be put to
accusing
death.
him of being a rebellious son.
Yeah, you're a rebellious son. You're not the Son of God. And so even as we look at Deuteronomy, Christ is a fulfillment of all those things.
And what they do, they put him to death.
They end up putting him to death. Yeah.
I wanted to.
That was good.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can open up your
Campus
Bible.
preacher. He's here all day long.
On Mondays too.
And he didn't produce a show last week.
I've been giving everybody a plug, but our network is loaded. I just got to say, we have a phenomenal network with a bunch of brilliant guys, and Glenn Sunshine, podcast guys, Thomas Price. He's another one I'm going to talk to with metaphysics. I mean, the guy, he teaches it. And C.R. Wiley. But one of the things that you have to listen to is Glenn Sunshine on enchantment. Because he goes through this and he applies this idea of enchantment beyond just magic that we think. He talking about the words.
He brought this up in the talk last October in Nashville.
Yeah, that's right. And
Great talk.
And so he talks about when you say that they use these words and they create, that's enchantment.
Right.
That's what they're doing. That's enchantment. But it's also the same thing they're doing with critical race theory and intersectionality, right? They're creating this world, and so you have to go listen to Glenn Sunshine talk about enchantment. It's one of the most phenomenal talks.
That was like one of their first episodes. Back in the day.
But it's also at the conference, which is why you want to become a Fight Laugh Feast Club member.
Get that talk.
So you get that talk.
And their campus preacher.
Go do some shows. This is why singing psalms is so important. When you sing psalms, you are proclaiming God's word back into the world. You're proclaiming it back to God, to one another, and this word is shaping us.
And it doesn't return void.
It is potent seed.
Can these bones live?
Yeah. By the Spirit of God, they do.
They do. It's because you speak to them. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.
Cheers.
What's your show going to be on Monday?
I'm still working on Bill Garraway, actually. I want to interview Bill Garraway.
Is he back in town?
He's back in town.
Oh, awesome.
I saw him.
Looking forward to that.
And so he's got an amazing testimony. So
okay, all right.
Nice.
We did not design a cookie-cutter curriculum meant to chop students into appropriately shaped submissives or snowflakes for the secular zeitgeist. We designed our curriculum the way we did because we want our graduates to be equipped to stand courageously against that destructive zeitgeist and to honor their maker and how they, body, mind, and soul, battle to save their communities and the entire Western world from our current diseased insanity. New St. Andrews College is not in the business of rubber stamping graduates for this particular job market or that particular career. We aren't happy unless our graduates are equipped to tackle any constructive cultural task anywhere, from courtrooms to hospitals to job sites to movie sets to the highest risk job and the most important setting of all, the raising and training of the next generation of immortal souls around dining room tables and in pews. The world may have gone mad, but it's not the first time. It has been saved before and by particular people, many of whom shared a very particular type of education. Augustine, Calvin, Jefferson, Churchill, and many lesser-known heroes in times of madness all had one type of education, one type of training in common. And it's the same kind of rigorous education we currently pursue surrounded by the rolling wheat fields of Idaho. By God's grace, our civilization will be saved, or rebuilt, from the smoking ruins. The men and women capable of such a task, capable of fearless joy and fiery laughter, all while undertaking such hard cultural labor, those are the kind of graduates we want, the kind we expect. They are why we exist, and why we teach what we teach. So you might call it a major in world building, or culture shaping, or a major in saving civilization. We call it classical Christian liberal arts. New St. Andrews College, saving civilization since 1994.